Judge, it is 10 a.m. if you want to get started. We'll let other people in as they come in.
Okay, do we have a form?
We do have a form.
All right.
I'm going to read off. what
Yeah,
we've
if you
got
would
online.
mind reading off that we have online.
Sure, online we've got Barrett Ship, Judge Hine, David Escamilla, Dina Williamson, Doug Gowan, Jennifer Williams, Johnny Gordon, Judge Wooley's on, Kelly Turner, Laura Hinojosa, Roland Johnson, Shay Stroy, and Sterling. Son Shilhab is about to join us. And everybody else is here in the room, and then Bart from Tarrant County is joining us as well. And we do have a forum of them.
All right, with that, welcome everyone. It's great to see you. We have an action-packed meeting today with lots of information, so we're going to go ahead and just get started right off the bat. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the meeting minutes? It was circulated by Casey earlier this week, and I think last week.
Yes,
Okay, does anyone make a motion for us to adopt those minutes or approve the minutes? Sorry.
John Warren moved to adopt the minutes from our June meeting.
Okay,
And I'll second.
all right. So all in favor? Aye. All right, any opposed? All right, with that, the minutes are adopted. So the first thing right out of the back, just as kind of a way for everybody to bring recommendation. Our subcommittee has been hard at work dealing with orders. If you'll remember, that Supreme Court basically issued an order under miscellaneous docket number 23-9071. In it, they requested that we, as soon as practicable, the Judicial Committee on Information Technology is directed to study and make recommendations on copying court orders, notices, and other documents in civil cases to research Texas. And the committee has been hard at work at that. They've been working on a draft for their recommendations on that order. And so the thing that it looks like is that we're kind of coalescing around integration is ultimately the way, not necessarily that you have to buy Odyssey or anything else, but somehow all courts need to get integrated so that they can get their orders, notices, and whatever into Research Texas. And that seems to be the quickest and most comprehensive way to get this accomplished, it looks like. And Todd, I think you were one of the co-chairs on that. Is that for you all?
Sure, I was a co-chair, but I'm on the committee.
Oh, okay. Carlos has joined us online. He's on the hook too.
Also on the hook, but if you can kind of give the committee maybe some of your thoughts from that committee meeting, and then we'll talk a little bit further.
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
As you said, Judge, we have met actually several times. We had a standing meeting on Friday for about the last 6 or 7 Fridays in a row, I think. And we brainstormed through, we've talked about a number of these issues over the course of the last few years. And we had our own, the subcommittee had, previously looked at rule-based ways of trying to get orders into Research Texas. And as everyone knows, the legislature kind of, I don't want to say stole our thunder, but they created an opportunity for us to try and work with clerks statewide, make that happen by enacting the change to the rule. And just as far as the subcommittee's work, I mean, we looked at all the different ways, have looked at all the different ways that might provide the least amount of friction toward getting orders in, and integration was in fact deemed to be one of the easiest ways to do that. So Casey has looked at the numbers and has started the beginnings of a report. I know we're going to have to provide a report to the Supreme Court. I think we have a pathway through integration to bringing the majority of clerk's offices into compliance and with the rule. The issue still being, this being an unfunded mandate, like we've heard before, and how do we assist the clerk's offices statewide that don't have the resources to do this? And so there are many items there under discussion, including the possibility of grants to obtain funding to help those clerk's offices that aren't able to integrate on their own, and their county commissioners have not, and might not ever allocate the funding to do that. So it's still a lot of work to be done on this project. But as co-chair, I feel good about the direction that we're heading in. I think there's been good collaboration among the different voices represented on the committee. And so I think we're headed in a good direction. I know, Justice Simmons, you provided us some additional guidance for things that you would like to see us do to try and make this happen. But that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I certainly would welcome the input of anyone else on the committee to add to anything that I've said. John Warren, Tracy are on the committee, and Michael's participated. So it's been very valuable to have the input directly of the clerk's office folks. I think we've got a lot of work left to do. Like I said, we're certainly headed in a good direction.
Yeah, no, it looks like you all are headed in a good direction. I mean, one of the questions I just had was, okay, let's get down to brass tacks. If we're going to make a recommendation to the court, they're probably going to turn around to us and go, okay, how do we implement it? When does it get implemented? Who gets going and when? And does Tyler, can they make sure that when counties go, we're ready, that they're ready? And they're going to integrate, because they have other things also on their to-do list that are already sequenced up. So, I mean, I'm going to open the conversation. It seemed to me, and it looked like to me, looking at your report and then, through the years, that integration is the easiest way to get everything up into Research Texas. That it just takes the load off the clerk, ultimately makes the clerk more efficient and easier for them to operate. But that it comes at a cost, and it comes at, time. So I had asked Casey, and maybe we could kind of come up with a quick fact list to assist the committee on who's already integrated, right? What the population of the counties, Casey already has that. The kind of outline, kind of unknown is the counties that don't use Odyssey, that have other CMS systems. I don't know, and I don't know if the committee was able to talk to any of those CMS providers to determine what would it take, or what are the resources necessary on those counties to be able to integrate with Tyler. We know that Tyler they can do that. I just don't have a good clue about, for smaller counties, what that requires in resources to see how realistic it is to get them ready to go, and what is the time period for those smaller counties. And then also, what kind of money are we talking about if we're going to go out to try and get grants or try and get something?
And we haven't delved into that level of detail.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I will say, and Casey's in the best position, I think,
Yeah.
to talk about some of the technology stuff, because he has interfaced directly with Tyler and asked some questions. And we've had, I think, a favorable response from Tyler on how to go about doing some of this, including that there are features that currently exist within the platform that Tyler is going to be willing to basically flip a switch for us at no cost, that will greatly facilitate some of the initial tasks that have to be accomplished to make this happen.
We also talked about educating clerks on what an approach would be based on their CMS provider. But also we talked about kind of a phased in approach similar to what we did with eval.
And so to add to that, OCA does have good data on who is running what as far as CMS goes. And then I know, talking with Tyler, and the Tyler guys keep me honest, that they were talking about that they could do the top 20 pretty easily, absent Tracy and Tarrant County, who's running their own case management system.
When you say they could do, you're talking about they could do the integration between the CMS system and
Yes.
whatever.
And it's basically because those counties are running Tyler's Odyssey system. And my understanding, Vince, is that there is all Tyler Odyssey instances at the district county clerk level are integratable. Like nobody needs to upgrade to a new version in order to get that integration.
Right. There's just a package that install. And that's honestly probably the most complex piece of it when it comes to Odyssey, that integration piece, because obviously there's other integrations we have to be cognizant of, and just to make sure we're giving the basically the respect that risk deserves.
Right, so
So what all would the clerk have to do with that integration model?
So the way I'm thinking about this to kind of operationalize a project is sort of have a team go in ahead of when we involve the clerks, get the integration piece installed and ready to go. So that way when the project team swoops in behind, it's really similar to what we do with e-filing. Here's the configurations, here's your choices, and then we basically kind of shoulder serve with the clerks to teach them and show them how to do the configurations. And we could say, move out a little bit ourselves, but I think that kind of robs the clerks of really being able to understand the process. So in the future, when things change, they want to add or remove things to the system, really just be able to control the integration mechanism, what is published research, they understand a little bit better. So sort of a happy
So-
balance.
So understanding what might be data sensitive or,
Exactly. Exactly.
or, sealed or something
Right.
that's confidential under their law in their county or something.
Exactly correct.
And we'll need some counsel on that from each jurisdiction because those configurations may be different. And so we'll need to kind of talk through a little bit about what, you know, what they would include sensitive, what they wouldn't, and making sure that those are mapped up all correct.
and then when we look down at the list of counties, Judge, the first one that's not on Tyler Odyssey is McLennan County on EDOC. Then you go down to, you've got more Odyssey. Then Ellis County's on LGS, then you've got more Odyssey, then Midland County's on net data. Then you got a boatload of more Odyssey. And then on Orange County at the moment is iDocket, and they're in the room. And then so like, and that county down there is 85,000. So 1, 2, 3, 4 counties that are not on Odyssey. And so basically, almost all but 4 on counties above 85,000 are on Odyssey.
And then it starts
Then
picking up down below.
Then it starts
for other
picking up
third party,
between iDocket, LGS, and net data are the top 3 providers after that. So I think when we're discussing those kinds of things with the committee, one of the things we talked about on the committee as well was that if we do a phased in approach, much like e-filing was done, then those APIs exist today and they're already out there for case management vendors to use. But if we say, hey, iDocket, we have this new API, or we want to mandate integration, but it's not going to hit the counties that you guys are in for another year and a half, whatever the timeline is, at least giving them that much runway, telling them today is better than, hey,
Yeah.
Amelia, it's gonna be mandatory in 30 days.
And I want to talk with you, Todd, because we're already working with Tyler, Chris Ritchie about updating our clients. And we're talking about having a project because we need to update them on their case types and their fees for this full integration and even one step further for NAS in 2025. So we already have a dialogue going with Tyler of, okay, how many offices are we going to be assessing? And we projected it'll kick off in January and it'll take about 7 to 8 months. So we're already in talks with Tyler about updating this, and the quick fixes of turning on the judges queue. And then there's one more setting. We're already training our people how to do those things. So we're talking with Tyler. So I think if you guys knew the conversations we've had, we would be able to collaborate and also teach other clerks how to request that from their vendors. It's a simple thing.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
back
So-
here talking with Tyler, so.
Good.
So for iDocket, you could be integrated in those counties by October of 2024?
Yes.
It's interesting, she used the word simple thing.
Yeah.
That
I'd say,
that
we're gonna
normally is
take your
not-
technologist part away.
Exactly,
That's
that's
a-
not used in this committee ever.
So when we have that collaboration and reach back, it's helped tremendously of how to get it lined out. So they've been great.
Yeah, we usually don't hear that.
Exactly. What about version issues with Tyler? How is that going to
So
present?
for this particular, for this particular integration with Research Texas, there's no version issues.
Okay.
The biggest issue is what, and Tracy touched on this very lightly. But as we get into the more rural counties, we know that there may be issues with document security. So like in John's shop, he's running,
Yeah.
are y'all running Portal out there for
Yes.
document access?
Mhm.
So he's got his documents available in another way in addition to research. And so in the clerk's office, he's already got the notion of what is confidential, what is sealed. In the more rural areas, there,
We actually went through a very extreme process of portals. We have public portal, we have attorney portal, we have DA portal.
with varying levels of
With
security.
varying levels of security.
And so there are some clerk offices in the more rural areas of the state to where that notion of that security doesn't exist. And
Right.
it's because clerks are like, this is a small office, all the attorneys are right, you know, you go outside of the courthouse, there's a row. They're by the gazebo, by the cannon, and that's where the attorneys are in those offices, and they just come in and get what they need to get. And so some of those case management systems, the documents have no security on them. It's all public
Right.
to the system. And so when we talk about integrating the research, now there has to be the notion from the clerk side of that some of these documents need to be secured in some way to offer that public access.
So is
And,
that-
and on the county side, if their IT shop doesn't have the BP servers to handle the more traffic that it's gonna require and generate to integrate with Research Texas, then that county's IT shop might have to buy new servers.
Okay, so is it more about the document security as opposed to just their IT security with the cybersecurity issues? Is it more, yeah, I was gonna
It's-
say,
it's
I'd be
gonna
more
vary.
worried about the other, the cybersecurity.
And the third piece of all that is, you know, Tracy mentions, do you have a beefy enough server to handle the traffic coming in? Do you have a beefy enough internet connection to handle the traffic coming in and going out?
Did the smaller counties get funding from the feds or anyone when they had, you know, that whole raft of cybersecurity breaks at courthouses and everything else, what, 2-3 years ago? Did they get some money in
I
from
don't
the
know if
feds
they
on
got
that?
any money from the feds on
From
that.
CISA or anybody?
My understanding, and this is just my understanding, is that any money that went to the counties, the commissioners court decided where those funds would go.
Right.
And in a lot of instances, clerks were to the right, commissioners court went to the left.
And I think at the state level, that money was the governor's office, a lot of the
Yeah, yeah.
COVID money and the ARPA money was there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same kind of deal.
Is there a way to run sort of a statewide grant program to where, you know, if there's whatever money is allocated and whatever the source, it's administered where, you know, we're accomplishing what we're setting out to accomplish
Right.
here, and that sort of thing doesn't happen. Because I worry about, you know, if it's filtered down to the county level, you know, everybody's gonna be clamoring for.
Right. So I know one of the things that we're talking about, and it's not yet set up, but we're talking about it internally in OCA. And we have my understanding is and don't quote me on this because I'm just the IT side of things, but my understanding is that we do have the authority to have a grant program to counties. And it's a matter of identifying the money and how that would all work. And I say that mainly because when this committee is talking about integrating or recommending to mandate the integration to research, there are other API-ish type projects that OCA is either undertaking or about to undertake that are gonna run into the same exact problems of different versions of the CMS or not enough server power or not enough bandwidth that we're gonna have to take care of anyway for those projects.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about internally that issue on how do we get that set up so that we can advocate and get money to counties to get their stuff in
Well,
order.
when you start looking at funding, and if you want it to go to a specific place or a specific use, then you have to make those restricted funds only for those purposes.
Sure.
Right, I mean, like a true grant, most grant requires that, you know,
Right.
if you want $5,000 for XYZ, then, you know, you're gonna report back how you use the money and it's specifically directed
Right.
to that.
And
I mean,
then on,
unfortunately, some of the Fed money, everything was moving so
Yeah.
fast, it was just loosey-goosey.
Yeah.
In
Right.
terms of
All,
the
all
restrictions
those
on
are
it.
just non-restricted funds.
Yeah,
And they let
exactly.
counties decide how they're gonna use them.
right, and I think with, on the OCA side of things, it would be grant programs specifically for the IT projects to connect with these APIs, and then we want to look at economies of scale as well, to figure out how we can structure that, so that if it was, let's say Amelia at IDOC, says, well, it's gonna cost us $75,000 to roll this API out to all of our clients. And then maybe there's a way that we can grant through the county so that IDOC is made whole for their efforts, and then all their clients get that integration at no cost to their client.
Well, it seems to me we kind of, what we need to do is, and I'm glad we made a really good start with docket here, is to go to, how many other CMS do we have in the state?
In the state,
Maybe
there are
suggest to
a
the
ton.
committee that we talk to those different, I mean, CMS systems or whatever, just to get an idea of what's out there. Maybe and maybe just not the one-offs, but some that are more prevalent.
yeah, so, I mean, when you take the top 5 vendors in the
Yeah.
CMS world, at least for the district and county clerks.
Yeah,
You're talking about, I'd say 94-95% of the market.
yeah, so let's talk to those 4 or 5 maybe on the committee, just kind of identify, talk to those. Just to round out our education on, you know, how fast can we get this done and kind of what the effort will take, what the dollars plus the time and talent of the clerks to get these things done. So that we can come up with a schedule that is not outlandish for those entities, you know, and
Do we know, in addition to the case management systems, the number of counties that are still operating in a paper environment?
What do you mean operating in a paper environment?
So you pull,
like they
you
put.
I know the documents out of e-file, you ingest them into your case management system, but you don't have but you're also printing the paper files, yes.
You actually start
Yeah,
a paper
so-
file.
I don't know that we know at the trial court level.
Is Roy on here? Ferguson? Someone?
No, I haven't seen
I'm
Judge
just
Ferguson.
interested in
I
what
don't,
his counties are doing.
we know at the district and county court level, there's 2, district and county courts that do not have a CMS. But very, very low population, so it may make sense for their county that, you know, 5-drawer lateral filing cabinet may be an appropriate CMS just because of the volume that they're running there is so low. But we don't have a good feel for how many are going the,
Moving backwards.
right, or sliding backwards of, I go into e-file, I hit accept, and then I
Right,
print the document, then I scan it in over here, and then I print an extra copy and
Yeah.
run it up to the judge and.
Because a lot of that is going on, and the reason a lot of clerks are having a hard time is because they're having to do multiple things when it should be one process. I know a lot of our colleagues, they are constantly fighting with members of their judiciary on the judges wanting to run the clerk's office.
Well, another piece of all this, Justice Simmons, is, you know, we have the rule in place. It's already effective. There's a lot of clerks' offices who cannot, for whatever reason, comply with it. So we've got, you know, an educational piece, I think, with not only the clerk's office, but also with perhaps the lawyers in our state. And also, of course, with the Supreme Court, because, you know, the legislature handed this down.
Right.
Didn't ask any of us. I mean, some here may have testified. I didn't testify. And the Supreme Court is, of course, just doing what the legislature
Right.
is mandated that it do. But in terms of the rollout, this is a little different situation than e-filing because that was a Supreme Court mandate and
Yeah.
this is a legislative mandate.
Right.
And I think one thing we ought to do, and I know this is part of our charge, is Supreme Court, the challenges that we're having. And I know the comment period for the rules is still open.
It is, and I've been looking at those just to see if there's anything we can hop on
Yeah.
those rules to do.
So just other considerations in all of this. I mean, I'm encouraged at the direction this is taking. But as we already pointed out, there's still challenges to deal with. We've got some great ideas that would love to see implemented. But, just from my personal perspective as a practitioner, this rule is only good if 100% of our clerk's offices are able to get their order.
Yeah.
And so, and we talked about things maybe that haven't been brought out here yet, but we've talked about things such as, do we need to modify some definitions in our e-filing standards in other places so that we make sure that by doing with clerks doing what we're asking them to do, however it's accomplished, that they're in compliance with the rule. Because we want to encourage and help them accomplish that too. So, again, I think we've got some communications to do, not only with clerk's offices, but, I know the Supreme Court is going to want to hear from us. They've given us that path and, they're going to want to know about some of the practical issues that we're dealing with.
Right. I mean, I think interestingly, the Supreme Court's request is actually phrased in terms of putting things on Research Texas.
Yeah.
And so, I'm interested in just how clerks are complying with the statute mandate that basically says you need to send all the orders to the parties. And so is that not happening? I mean, for practitioners or clerks, or is that not just happening? I think it was effective, September?
It's my understanding that bill that passed
Mhm.
was for the courts to do it. And so right now, everything's just up in the air.
The clerk is given the responsibility. That's what
I thought I have the statute right here.
I don't have it in front of me, but I do.
And I think Justice Simmons, I mean, we've just I agree with everything Todd said, by the way, about the report. And there's a lot of other people on our subcommittee, but I think to answer that question, I don't think it's happening universally across the board.
I can testify that it's not because I've had orders come out in the last month that I've not received any notice of
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
from the clerk.
Okay.
And it tends to be in rural counties.
And I was gonna say, that's long before this legislation, we're already.
Yeah,
doing that.
exactly. I
So,
mean, tons of courts were already sending out, or I was surprised that they weren't sending out orders.
Well, like even at our last meeting, I know Blake was shocked. I was kind of shocked because at the appellate level, we've been doing that for almost a decade, more than a decade now.
Yeah, it's design teams, it seemed like a fundamental thing that you needed to do. This was the rules, say, clerks
Right.
take notices.
Yeah, so let's do it electronically, yeah.
Right, and some of the issues I know you mentioned before, but now that it's kind of coming up in terms of this recommendation and that sort of thing. What are the barriers to clerks going ahead and sending those orders out by email or whatever?
Well, and one of the things that came out in the meeting, and I see Patty's on the line, Patty Henry is on the line, or is online as well. My understanding, or what Patty brought up in the meeting, is that a lot of that functionality is already in the CMS today, that all it is a matter of,
Turning it on or.
picking the order, right click and set email, and then it attaches it to an email. Then you tell it where you want it to go, and then off it goes. So
And that's for the integrated courts, right?
no, that's for just today.
That's
Yeah.
today.
Okay.
But that isn't on.
It's
I
not-
don't
that's not
know
set
what
yet.
it is in the
Yeah.
other.
Like in iDocket,
CMSs.
are you able to, if I pick an event in iDocket, can I email the document?
You can email it, but what we're trying to train them on is to do it at the EFM level. And I think the biggest issue is education. They don't know how
That
to
it's there.
ask Tyler for the judges queue. They don't know how to ask Tyler to turn that switch on to be able, when you accept the order, that it e-serves everybody back. And so
Right.
it's just education, and that's what we really try to work on, is just a press release of, hey, this has gone in.
This is how it works.
And that's something that, going to area meetings and stuff, we go to all those. I think the general thing is just they don't know how to do it. So I think just having a document of how to do it from the EFM, because it is possible,
And but that's for proposed orders with the judge's key, right?
right?
But
once
if
that-
generally in any document, can I email that out of the CMS?
Out of the CMS, yes, but whenever, and Terry, you might help me here, whenever you get a proposed order, it goes to the judge's queue. He signs it, goes back to the clerk's queue, she accepts it, it should e-serve everybody back.
That's the new proposed order process.
If you follow the new
Yeah.
proposed order, if you're just using a queue that's been configured and classifying that as proposed order queue, then it won't work that way.
So that's what I'm doing, we gotta get them on their new,
On the new queues, right?
so I
I
think if
need-
we did that, you'd see a Spotify in quickly.
But
I need
technically,
to-
though,
I need-
emailing it out of your case management system doesn't comply with the statute.
Right.
Right.
Problem.
I need a huge favor.
What's that?
As part of this, I need the recommendation is that a judge must sign an order within 24 hours of the hearing. I have.
Get him a laugh.
Okay, I have.
I guess I can probably do that as long as I've got my resignation.
It's that, but I don't know if
No,
that's
no.
possible.
No, I mean, trial court, I mean, I'm.
I was a trial court judge. It's impossible. What are you talking about?
Within 24 hours of the hearing?
Yes. I mean, if.
They always
I
put
would
it-
take it- I mean, okay, there's a summary judgment hearing, right? And they come in Barrett County, remember how they come in? I have no idea who the hell they are. They've got 5 books this big
Well,
of notebooks. Okay,
well, I-
surprise. My hearing will take all day. And this is a whole new thing you don't know anything about. It's maybe some kind of giant stock fraud thing,
Mhm.
okay? How am I supposed to do that in 24 hours? I mean, you just can't. It's a different.
Well,
Wow.
I'll tell you my problem. I have a judge that will only sign orders once a month.
Ooh, okay, that's the other side of it.
No, but at the end of the day, the lawyers have walked away.
What do you do with
Waiting
TROs and stuff?
for an order. And the judge will say, well, I gave it to the clerks a long time ago, and then, of course, I call BS. And so the lawyers are mad at me because we're not sending them an order that we only got.
But where are they sitting? Where are the orders that are presented to the judge sitting in a queue and the judge
No,
doesn't do it?
I said, these are judges that prefer paper. They
So-
only
so
Right,
want the paper order, they only want to do a hand signature,
Right.
and they'll just pile up, and at the end of the month, and she'll sign on the 30th for a hearing or a trial or a hearing that she had on the 2nd, but she signed it on the 30th and dated it November 2nd.
No. can't do
That is absolutely against. the
That's a,
rules.
that's
That's
a
not what-
judicial commission. judicial con-
John, as you said in the past,
Because
that
that's
should be a
totally
process problem, right?
Everything they're trying to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but, I mean, I'll tell you, if
They'll
there.
date it
no,
correct.
I mean, no, I know.
Week out.
But
you have a Bible over in your office. I swear to God, I swear to God.
Go get him the Sam Houston Bible. That carries a lot greater.
John, this is Dan. We have a trial judge in Harris County who's been mandamused, I think, 15 times for not signing orders,
Mhm.
dispositive motions.
Why-
I don't know what else can be done. I don't know that a rule would
Right,
help you.
correct. It's up to the voters.
I hear you, John, and I felt like my job was to rule and get orders out as quick as I could, but
Can you email me that mandamus?
if I can find it. They're
Okay.
actually, like I said, I think there are about 15 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but, and I say, but I say that because for me, I'd like to run a very pristine shop. As
I
soon
think
as,
all clerks do.
yeah,
Yeah.
and, but I'm just talking about my experience. And so I run a very pristine shop, and if there's an order that was signed on the second, I want it in the attorney's hands no later than the fourth. But if, and attorneys are mad, they don't know what's happening on the back end. And so the judge wait till the end of the month, and the lawyer said, where's the order? We don't have an order. And then they get an order, they said, the order was signed on the second. Like, no, it wasn't.
Oof, that is.
We've even, you know, that becomes a chess game, because I've even told my staff, the day we get it back, we need to file stamp on the back of the order when it was returned. Or something, because
Yeah,
I'm
because,
like,
okay,
that
so when
makes
you
no
ingest
sense.
that order that's backdated, but your file will show, there'll be a record of when it hits the file. I mean, technically the file, correct?
No, because these are paper orders, so we're scanning them, so they go in the day that we do it. It's not electronically
Okay.
submitted.
That is just that's gonna be a huge appeal nightmare.
Maybe you need to put in your case management system after hearing status no order received, or something like that.
Yeah, and we've been playing chess, trying to figure out how we can let the lawyers
If you
know
put it, if
that
that's
it's
out
the
there,
judge
on
and
the
it's not us.
Yeah.
if that's out there on the website, you know,
Mhm.
the clerk's office status, no order received. Then maybe.
You know what?
they'll
That might
see
be
that.
absolutely
Yes, like that,
somehow an
yeah.
easy, no order received, no order received. Then they'll call you and say, but we sent you an order. You can say,
We can check with the court.
check with the court. Oh, here's a, yeah, that's it. Keep giving out the number for the
Ooh,
judge.
Court.
Or the court.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
No order
Yeah.
received, contact court.
Contact that
Yeah.
phone number there. That's it. There you go. Okay. We kind of diverted from what we were talking about.
Thank
We solved
Well, I
John's
was-
problem.
Well, but actually, I was hoping, because they want the orders on research taxes, and I was hoping that would also be a cure for my problem, so.
But I don't know that it is, unfortunately. But this phone number and the little no order received will be a cure, I'll bet you, to some extent. Okay, so the committee then, will continue on, I hope, with your Friday conferences to kind of start, formulating maybe a plan with more, specifics. And also, I have a couple notes that I'll send you, Todd, about, rules. There's some things that were in the document y'all have been working on. That I thought maybe could go into a rule that is actually out there in play. One of the rules, some of anyway.
Part of the 9071.
Yeah, there was a rule. Anyway, I'm trying to, I have.
Talking about the definition.
It's not just a definition, it was. Yeah, it was a definition, but it was also something else. I don't know. Sorry about that. I'll look and see, because I kind of made some notes that are not readily apparent here, but I'll get that to you all to continue on with that. But this has been a very good discussion, and I think, Todd, do you and Carlos have kind of now an idea of kind of how to move forward?
I think
Yes.
so. With
Appreciate it.
Casey's Input, on the tech side, I think absolutely we can take this and continue our work.
Good, okay.
When is this?
What I'd like to
supposedly
do-
Like to be in Supreme Court soon.
Yeah, I think Supreme Court would like us to get this moving, but it also behooves us to give it, because they'll come back to us and go, well, okay, what should the schedule be? So I think it behooves us to kind of get a package deal ready for them that they can then implement based on our recommendation. So what I would say is, what do you all think? Maybe in terms of contacting some of these, the other CMS people, and just kind of and getting in touch with Tyler in terms of your capacity to be able to take on this kind of schedule that we're thinking about. How long do you think, Todd? Carlos, what do you think it's gonna take you?
Ideally, we would have something in the Supreme Court by the end of the comment period.
Oh, for sure.
That's just a kind of, that's a date that they set, they
Yeah,
set.
what is the end of the comment
I
period?
think it's January
January
1st.
January first.
And
You
I,
know, and I would want to, you know what, I would like to hustle this now so that you're not stuck on this in the Christmas season.
and
You
Todd,
know.
I'm happy to engage with the other CMS. I mean, we've been talking with Tyler.
Yeah.
And we talk with iDocket on
You could be the-
UCMS anyway, but we can go ahead and get in touch with the other 3 of the top 5.
Yeah,
And because OCA's established relationships with them to see exactly, are you in this, like if Amelia and iDocket say, yeah, we could meet October 2024. And the other vendors come back and say, yeah, it's gonna take us about that long too. Well, then maybe that's the reasonable answer.
So
Yeah, I like where that's going.
given, and we talked about time periods in some of these meetings, given that the Odyssey types would cover 80% of the market, so to speak. And in the top 20, as Casey puts it,
oh, in the top one.
is there, and we talked about a period of 90 days to get that going, and Tyler has estimated a 4 to 6 week time period. Is there any,
Oh, I see she's going, no.
well,
If you'll allow me, the average project duration for those is about 60 to 70 days. What we were talking, what I alluded to before, what we can find a way to kind of operationalize the rollout. They do the hard part ahead of time, swoop in behind with the clerks. I'll be shaved that to 45 to 50 days.
Yeah.
What we were thinking is if round about the time where you suppose the order be signed, we could probably get it done by the end of April 2024, and that would be with the remaining top 20. So
Right.
it's roughly around the same time frame, but it gives us a little bit more of an actual target end date to shoot for versus this sort of moving 90-day target. We don't really
Yeah.
know, okay, when does the other shoe drop? Everybody has to stop what we're doing. We have upgrades, we have go lives, we have security patches, so when we stop them, move them.
Meaning we need a point by
You
which
need
we
it,
then
you
move.
need the
because-
dates, you
Yeah,
need an actual date, of
because
do this.
we don't have a set of staff of
I agree.
20 people that are just waiting
Yeah.
for this to happen,
Right.
right? So once that happens, then we gotta react to it.
Okay, so we have the people that are ready to flow, they've got Odyssey, they're whatever, so we're talking and get a date for that. Now, what is your thoughts on these other third-party CMSs in terms of?
I think you guys are taking the right approach by kind of inquiring them what the timeline looks like.
Yeah.
Like iDocket says, we could have ours by 10/1. Others may feel differently. What I want to make sure is not lost is the iDocket and others are also working on some of the, like the EFM updates, some of the e-file 2.0 stuff. So all of that would have to be tabled and this be brought forward. And then if you ask them from sort of that perspective, what, if you guys are going full board, what would that timeline look
Okay,
like?
so Tyler would have to table their work with them on those
Correct.
things. I see it's more that's what I was wondering,
Right.
We have
your
to-
capacity.
And,
We have to collaborate because with Tyler, we have 2 projects. We have ECF4 and ECF5, and then we're gonna add a project to update our county. So it's just making sure we have resources
Okay.
across both companies to run those 3 projects. And that's what they told us is that, they have to give us a project team. So I think it's working with each vendor of, if you have these e-filing projects, where are we going and do you have the resources and does Tyler have the resources that we
Yeah.
can all meet it? So,
and what's also the priority with those things? Cause if it's
Right.
like, don't worry about ECF5, let's work on this
And-
instead.
Yeah.
And then the other,
And also, Todd and Casey for the subcommittee work. I would also just note that I think there's comments from Patty, Laura, Velva, and Doug that I think are helpful for us to weave into our timing and that when the judges sign it, maybe one date, when the clerks actually get it and are able to file it, might be a different date. And I think we just need to make sure that that's also part of what we recommend to the court and include.
Yeah, and if I may, Carlos, in Hidalgo County, we've had a local rule for a few years in that all orders require CCs. And so we have been sending out those orders a long time before this September 1st issue occurred. But we also use eFile Texas to send our notices out due to the antiquated system of Odyssey that we have. So I think depending on what version of Odyssey the clerks have is going to be really crucial to us being able to do all of this. So that's another thing that needs to be taken into consideration.
So Laura, can I ask a clarifying question, Laura, for your antiquated Odyssey system? Obviously, if your county's licensed with Odyssey, you have the ability to have the non-antiquated version, like that, you have that software available to you. Is it an IT thing, or is there anything preventing you all from upgrading?
I think it's money. Terry can answer that probably better than we can, but I know that our IT system, our IT department is testing a newer version. We're just not there yet.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of them, just kind of like I alluded to earlier, making sure that when we plan this with different counties that
Right.
we
need to weave it in with all the other projects that are going on.
So do they need to go to 2023 in order to do this?
But they're already doing that because
But if
they're,
they're in mode of doing that, then
Right,
maybe they gotta finish that before
Before
they
they
do
start
this. I
this.
see.
That's-
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
and then,
In the proposal that we rested on in subcommittee, we had a built-in ability to request for technological reasons, an extension of time.
Mhm.
So that has been taken into account.
and the last wrinkle to add to all of this is the other OCA projects that are going on as well that will, like, I know Tracy's doing 1182 right now.
Just that 100.
Yeah, and so, and then OCA is gonna start switching to case level data. That's gonna be another set of APIs. It looks like text reminders is gonna start, so that's another set of APIs. Then there's the bail system for magistration, that's another. And so there's all these things that are moving forward that we just need to be cognizant of on the timing of them as they weave through that, because it's all tying the same one system to another. It's the same two systems, but all these different tie-ins together.
But how does that look for counties who don't have the IT resources?
That's why we're talking internally on that grant program, because that's definitely an issue when you get down to the less populous counties.
From the project side, it's probably one of those that they just kind of pick them up and run with them, sort of.
Right.
Yeah.
But out of the 5 that you said you need to get with from the top 20, is any of those part of the UCMS for the lower populated
Yes,
towns?
out of the top 5 vendors, 2 of the top 5 are running our UCMS project. And the nice thing about the UCMS project is all those customers are SaaS customers. So for them, they're not dealing with the on-prem server power stuff. If we say, you know, you got it, well, and part of UCMS is you have to be integrated with research. So that's, IDOC is working on that for their clients. And of course, Odyssey that is in UCMS it's on 2023, went live at the end of October.
Yeah.
And so they're already on the latest, greatest Odyssey and clicked in and
Right, but even if they're hooked in and we do e-pilot, that doesn't mean that, I mean, is Tyler already committed to
those
sending
counties,
out the notices automatically with no cost
no,
from Research Texas?
we haven't talked about that
We
yet.
haven't talked about that.
That was the other thing the committee had talked about.
Okay,
Judge, was that Tyler had said that if the Supreme Court were to mandate integration with Research Texas, that currently in research, the reminder function that attorneys can opt in and pay for with their out of their pocket, that Tyler would make that at no cost for the parties on the case and make it automatic. So I mean, there's dev time for that too, because that's not how the system currently works. So
Parties and attorneys.
parties, and attorneys.
Mostly attorneys
Right,
use that.
sure.
yeah, this is similar per se. But as far as getting it out of research, how long for that setup to take?
What do you mean getting it out?
The notice.
Right.
We did the same similar timeline in April.
End of April.
Okay, so it's still a good 90 days after the first of the year before that can be implemented.
All right.
Is that a new build out or isn't that function already exist?
The functionality exists, but to make it free for certain stakeholders and the configuration around that.
And to make it automatic for certain stakeholders,
Right.
free and automatic.
So there's components associated with that that we have to do.
Okay. All right, that was good and robust discussion, and I'm gonna look for the comments in the chat on the bill, maybe make sure the committee gets that. And then I would just ask you to go full steam ahead. My recommendation would be to, let's have something, kind of by mid-December, no later, that we feel good about and everything else. We can always circulate this by, if we don't have a meeting, we can circulate, by email or do a quick Zoom meeting or whatever to kind of get it done, to get it to the Supreme Court before the commentary period, but then it gets it away from Christmas. So we're not stuck close to Christmas working on it or right after Christmas.
Are we still meeting every Friday throughout for the rest of the year?
Not after Thanksgiving,
I think-
please.
I think the invite expired last week
Yeah.
leading up to this meeting. So I would ask the committee if we could take today off and not have our usual 3 PM meeting.
Yes.
And then start back up next week. Obviously, we wouldn't want to do this on Thanksgiving week.
I think that's the 24th. I mean, it's that Fridays.
So what, we get one more Friday, then it's Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
then we can go a little more.
And if you can check, and be the liaison for the committee in terms of checking with the other CMS.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
major CMS operators, that way,
Absolutely, yeah, I've got a note for that.
they don't have to take that on and you can report out
I-
the
I
next
think
meeting.
Alejandra's trying to set up something for next Wednesday. FYI.
Okay,
Okay. All right, so let's move on to our, we got a lot of stuff to cover, but I think that was a very good kind of discussion. And we'll get with you also, Tyler, just to kind of make sure we can get the sequence correctly, as far as what the recommendation is. So, I'm gonna move on and let's see about, Judge Hind, are you prepared to talk about your, thoughts on the, Texas Rule of Civil Procedure 3A?
Yes.
Okay.
So this was from way back, gosh, I think it was our May meeting, or no, actually March, that we get anecdotal stories about e-filing difficulties in different courts and different standards and so forth. And that's just, part of what we do is kind of filter that in our clearinghouse for people to complain and so forth. But then when the Supreme Court changed the rule on local rules to remove the step where the Supreme Court has to vet and approve the local rule before it becomes effective, I think we started to see some concerns that, maybe some of these informal problems might become more formal through adoption of local rules and standing orders on how people should file and electronically file and so forth. And so, Rebecca, you asked me if I could take a crack at proposing a revision to request the Supreme Court consider on that to make it clear that however a court characterizes it, whether it's a local rule or standing order, they can't just depart from the technology standards and the requirements for e-filing. And so I sent a memo to y'all a few months ago, and I don't think I was able to make the last meeting, so I wasn't able to present it. And I also noticed that there's a local rule in the traps, and there's a rule of judicial administration 10 that also kind of deals with it. And so I suggested we asked the Supreme Court to consider revising Rule 3A of the Texas Rules of Civil Procedure, Rule 1.2 of the Texas Rules of Appellate Procedure, and Rule 10 of the Texas Rules of Judicial Administration to make it clear that you can't depart from the technology standards. And so I don't know, Casey, do you have that memo in front of you? Can you put it on screen? Because I did it so that you could redline and see.
I have that with me.
I'll try and pull it up here if you would like.
And it, yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna
if
say,
you can
Judge,
pull it up and maybe share, that might be faster.
Yeah, here. Oh, good. No, wrong one. I was farther down on the agenda, so I wasn't ready. I apologize.
Oh, sorry, I apologize.
No,
I
you're
just
good.
wanted this to move forward because we've, it's been out there and I think it's ready to roll. So, I mean, I thought this would be something that we could probably get through pretty quickly.
Okay. I found it. Let me see if I can screen share it. Okay, so that's it, and that's my memo. And then I used I basically pasted in the current rule and then did a track changes to show what I am suggesting is the language we propose. So that's 3A. And then
Okay.
it's pretty much the same language in 1.2 of the trap. And then the Rural Judicial Administration 10, there's another revision, which see that one looks pretty much the same as what we said before, but then down here, it tracks similar language just on some other provisions.
Right.
In the rule.
So let me ask you can you go back up to the language that you propose? And let's just start with on the local rules. I'm gonna ask you one question. This is coming from just how judges don't like to hear what they may or may not do. And although that is proper, I think from both a grammatical and other sense that a court may not promulgate or enforce any local rule, I'm wondering if we can just put local rules may not, or standing orders may not impose or shall not impose or must not. I'm always wondering where the Supreme Court is. Where are we on shall? We're on must now. So yeah. Must not impose additional or different standards, i.e., in other words, it's certainly clear that they're not supposed to do it. But I just think it won't insult them so much.
I would send this to them, because I wouldn't spend a lot of time. We spent so much time,
We're-
tweaking some of our other language that we sent to them, and then they do whatever they want. They're gonna rewrite it anyway.
Okay.
I think the point is very clear here, and if they don't like it,
And
change it.
yeah,
We
because,
spend a lot of time.
okay, all right. I mean, I just thought this is very clear and to the point. I just didn't want to insult anybody about promulgate. They cannot do things. They don't like that, but yeah, if you think they're not gonna, that this is not a biggie.
Anyway.
You know-
whatever send them, they're gonna change it. But, so I would just say, I wouldn't just.
Okay.
belabor it a
Okay.
lot.
Okay.
I think it's very clear what it
I do
is.
too. I think it was a well done memo, very much so, and very helpful. And I think does anybody have any comments about this or any thoughts about it? I mean, I spoke with Justice Boyd before this ever got implemented, and so it gave him just a strong sort of, please don't do this about it. It makes it easier for judges to look up and see where things are because they're all online allegedly. But it just, then, people are slapping on all the, particularly in divorces and stuff, all these additional things that are allegedly required. So it doesn't match up with the free forms that people try and file for pro se. So those are getting all returned. And so, anyway, I think this is necessary just so that they can't put a bunch of increased information and things that are not the norm for e-filing purposes, that will require things to be kicked back and that sort of thing. So does anybody have any comments, thoughts?
It looks like Carlos is raising his hand.
Yeah, just real, yeah, very quick. I mean, unlike, I think the subcommittee on the orders that there's a lot of different moving parts. To me, there's not a lot of moving parts to this one. I think this is a really, really well drafted and easy to understand rule. And so I don't know at what point we vote for it, but I certainly would encourage, or even move that we adopt this as a recommendation. We need any further discussion, but I would certainly move to that we adopt this as a recommendation.
Okay, so we have a motion that we move to adopt this as our recommendation to the Supreme Court.
John Moore, second.
John Warren, second. Any further discussion?
Has this been emailed? Because I don't remember seeing.
Yeah, it's been emailed. I thought it was emailed to everyone on the committee. No?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, then why don't we, I got it. It's just been a long time. It's been months and months ago. So this is 2 meetings ago,
Gotcha.
and what happened is the last meeting when it was supposed to be presented, Judge Hine had a hearing or some other thing and could not present it then.
Gotcha.
So it was actually circulated and everything else. I mean, I've seen it before for sure. So, yeah, so
It wasn't September, it would have been June.
June, yeah, so
That's why
that's
I
why it's
remember.
been further back, but everybody got it because it actually was on the
Agenda.
agenda.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we got a motion and a second.
yep. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so it passes, and so I will go ahead and chat with you a little bit more, Judge Hind, and probably go ahead and craft the cover letter for that. That'll go to the Supreme Court from the committee.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So sorry, I'm gonna go back now to Tyler. I wanted to take care of that because I didn't want us all to completely forget about Judge Hines deal, and I thought it would be quick. So if I can go back to Tyler and have you do your presentation and kind of give us a quick update. You would send this to you now.
Sorry, test play. Okay, so if you're not familiar with me, Evan Acosta, I run the Eval Texas program. Okay, so obviously the program continues to do well. We have over 730,000 user accounts created today. So averaging around 44,000 filings a day, 1.3 million fees processed to BFM on a daily basis. For the JPs themselves, we're at about 20 out of the top 22 counties that have been implemented at least one or more offices of the JP. Hidalgo has an active project going right now. I think the one holdout, I won't say holdout, but the one that we haven't gotten to yet is Jefferson. And then we have 7, I think we actually have 8 now active pending engagements for other JP offices.
I think it's on it's on the view of the people.
There we go. There we go.
Person.
Am I just clicking past people?
It's great.
So return for correction rates, we see a dip down from where we were before, averaging about 6.8% return for correction rate over the last 6 months. And that is compared to the national average, which we refreshed a little bit. National average was brought down, which is sort of what you expect, efficiencies gained over the market. So still cruising along in Texas. I went ahead and added one more slide based on some conversations we had out of the last meeting. I like to keep something like this within the presentations to give you guys a little bit more fidelity into the differences in between JP offices and between the county district court. So what we're doing is splitting out what are the top 10 return rates by the various offices by percentage. So on the county district courts, we do limit those to 1,000 filings for the case that we're gonna have the case that's filed 3 times a year and it's got 2 out of 3 rejected. So try not to skew results. And on the JP side, we limit that to the 500 500 filings or more in the specific case type. So, give you a second to take that in. Happy to get feedback on it, maybe add a little bit more, slice and dice the data a little bit different way, but something I wanted to give a little bit more value to when we're looking at return for correction. Well, what is being returned for correction?
So eviction, wait, okay, so these are in the county and district courts.
Left side,
Left
county
side,
district,
county
right
district.
side is justice courts.
This strikes me that these are probably not attorneys filing these types of matters. A lot of these are probably
Because our
attorneys.
evictions supposed to be over in the JP court, I mean. Or these
County-
appeals,
county court,
are
Their
these
appeal
appeals to county, right, and so are those the appeals that are,
probably.
Actually, I think there should be a distinction, either JP appeal, or should it,
yeah, I don't know.
eviction appeal or eviction.
Yeah, I don't know what, anyway, but I can see why that would be returned for correction for.
But I guess if it's over on the county side, you're running that report based on appeals. So if it's on the JP side, yeah.
I
all right.
wouldn't- what-
So this may be the
I would say it's
filing, and this
because
may be the
of
outside.
wrong court. I mean, it could be an original and that's why it's returned for correction, because it belongs over in JP court.
But, I mean, I guess the question for the attorneys and the clerks, what the group is, are these case types typically pro se involved case types?
Yeah.
And so then is it not that surprising that these return for correction rates are higher?
That's what I'm.
We could add a column to say what percentage is private attorney, what percent, or what is attorney, what is pro se, and just kind of.
That may be interesting to see.
I mean, registering foreign judgments, to me, it wouldn't
That one
be,
definitely is an attorney. but-
that's an attorney. I
Yeah,
mean,
the name change, the
Oh,
occupational
yeah,
driver's
that would
license, the
be-
habeas corpus.
Non-disclosures,
habeas corpus,
Well, don't you think it's prisoners?
probably.
oh, that's what that is.
What if the percentages go at the next 10 and the next 10? I mean, is there a precipitous drop at some point?
On the JP side,
No,
yes.
on the
probably.
county and district court side.
I'd have to double check. I think it trends down pretty kindly until you get to like below 10% and does sort of plummet to 7 to 3 to 2, then a bunch of 1 to 2%.
Justice
So-
Simmons, everyone, I
Yes.
can tell you what that habeas corpus thing is, and it's a little bit of a problem. Some of the counties don't allow and cannot accommodate the filing of sound or video when you have those as exhibits. And so it's a real problem, you know, trying to get that up to the Court of Criminal Appeals, because you file those in the district courts and the Court of Criminal Appeals decides it. So somehow you have to make a record, and that's why that's so high on habeas corpus.
Wow. Okay,
What does the percentage translate to in terms of actual number of filings?
It's gonna vary from case type to case type. I don't have those numbers offhand, but that's something that we could add more to. We can have raw numbers, we can split out between what's the percentage of pro se, what's the percentage of attorney filers.
Yeah.
Well,
'cause
and so, and then down to the bottom mark where it says limited to case types with 1,000+ filings. So you know it's at least 281 of them.
Yeah,
There
but
was at least 1,000 filings in that category.
if there's 10% of a certain type of matter that is filed more than these,
Right.
Sure.
then it would translate to money more number. of
Right, well,
rejections.
basically, what's the impact? What's the
Yeah.
impact of these being returned?
Yeah.
A
And-
1,000.
and so do we still run the county and district courts, kind of who is returning the most versus, you know,
We have that
Or
available in the
comparison.
e-filing analytics platform.
okay.
And we can
All
see
right.
that at any time.
Yeah, we can, if these are like mainstay slides we want to keep up with, we can absolutely do that.
Yeah, no, I'd like to know,
I can make sure that's added back in and
Okay.
kept in.
please do. Okay,
Yeah, it would look very different though, right? If you're looking at in terms of numbers as
Right.
opposed to percentage.
Yeah.
It would be a very different.
Right.
And if you're looking at, I mean, that might be just as informative, right? Like what's,
Yeah.
what were the most just number wise, the
Right.
ones that were returned.
Okay, and slide we put back in, apologies for not having the last couple, is our guide file. Progress and how it's doing, same 45 interviews, same interviews that are currently integrated. Slight uptick year over year on the on the number, on the completion rate, excuse me, the typical, cities, well, actually, I should redo the slide, the typical counties that you see that are using it the most. And then the number of sessions completed versus that are printed or, integrated e-file. Sort of a nice little trend up this year from where we were last year, or earlier in the year, excuse me.
Wow, Tarrant has got a machine going there. Okay.
I think that's their JP court.
Is it the
Yeah.
JP court?
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
that there's JP interviews that integrates, statewide.
Okay,
It's one of the last things I worked on.
okay.
Okay, and then research Texas, popular topic. So refresh from the last presentation, and we're up 17.5% year over year from this time in 2022 in terms of total number of registered users. There are, we're up to 65 courts that are integrated out of the 620 integration points that we are aware of that are not integrated with research. And obviously, same questions that are asked from the legal community. When will we get criminal data? When are judgment orders going to be added? And, what about hearing data?
Mhm.
What is hearing data?
Like, hearing,
Notices of hearings, notices of settings.
So they just want to see that list.
Well, I mean, if it's filed, it should already be there,
It should be, yeah.
but if it's not filed, if it's just served, it'll never be there.
I think with for data, there's a section in Research Texas, when you pull up that case, that'll show you the settings and
Yeah.
events, and documents,
Pending settings.
pending settings, and if you're not integrated, you won't see in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. Maybe we should add that to our list.
you should.
But I mean,
I'd
it's,
like to.
It's part of the
it's
integration.
it's part of the benefit of integration.
Yeah,
Got it,
I think
okay.
there's so much benefit to that. I mean, that's what our focus ought to
For
be.
sure.
So would the amount of attorney registered users in research be approximately 25 to 30,000, somewhere in there?
I can actually look at I can look at the actual real numbers.
Right, but according to the far right column, it's above 20,000 and
Yes.
it looks like it's below 30.
That's correct.
And it's been slightly above 20,000 since 2022.
That's right. There's a pretty significant jump. One of the timeframes last year, I can't remember which one it was, when I was looking at historical data, and it's just slowly trended up since then.
Okay, what's the bottom color? Is that the judges? Registered user? I mean,
it
looks purple to me. I don't know if it's mine.
So the very bottom one's actually clerks or clerk admins.
Okay, and then there's judges, the little red line on
Yeah.
top, which are the judges, then it goes the attorneys,
All
and then
pick
it
different
goes
colors.
to. Yeah, okay, and then the registered use, okay.
Mark, back to your point, we would expect the number of attorneys utilizing the system to grow pretty healthily once we get the integration. I think right now, it's incomplete records.
Yeah.
And so it's got limited value. And then with the absence of criminal, I think you bring criminal back on and you've got a comprehensive court repository. So I think you'll start to see a lot more attorneys and legal professionals utilizing the system.
Yeah, if we incentivize the use of it, then they'll
course.
come, sure.
Yeah, you got it.
So one of the last things that we want to bring up is in terms of research is specifically the Texas UCMS project is coming to sort of a critical juncture when we need to decide how are we going to handle essentially the public access solution, how are we going to surface publicly available criminal data. So obviously the recommended solution we would have is you surface it in statewide research solutions. It's sort of one single source for data across the state. We already basically have the mechanisms, the underpinnings to handle that, just different security measures you can put in place for criminal data versus civil. Obviously, the drawback to that is it's not permitted at the moment. Alternatively, you could stand up local instances of research or local instances of portal. But you run into sort of a situation that Clerk Warren was talking about earlier, where you have multiple iterations of the portal thing, and the security level you need, who's getting access to it. And you would have something kind of similar on the research side too, where you have local criminal version versus state version. Now clerks are having to manage two different portals. Attorneys may be confused because they don't know which portal to go to for what information. So,
So in other words, so if people aren't familiar, the portal then is basically what some courts use, right, or what most courts use. But that is aging out.
yep.
Yes.
And
2025.
so, right, and so right now, local research, not local, Research Texas could be used instead. Or is there a thought that you're gonna create another portal version 2, version 3, or something
No, I
like
think-
that?
Or at least from Tyler perspective, my understanding is they're moving all customers to what a local version of a research. And actually, this kind of wraps into another agenda item of discussing where we are on criminal and research, because IDOC gonna run into the exact same problem if they haven't run it already, of that, okay, you know, because the two UCMS vendors are in the room, and so that's the same problem. Okay, we're required by UCMS to expose these documents to the public. On the civil side, it's research, easy peasy, because that's there. But on the criminal side, our contracts require that public access be there. But do we go,
Do they?
but IDOC is using their local Ruby solution right now. And Tyler is saying we need to figure out if we're gonna go and install individual local copies of research, or do we want to?
What is the benefit of a local copy of research? I mean, wouldn't I as a lawyer then have to go all
Yes,
over? Well, why would we ever do that?
because criminals not.
No, but I mean, this seems to me, this is a very strong opportunity for many, many different reasons, just to go to a full forward with research. So I'm just trying to understand, what is the downside to that? Versus local.
It's gonna be driven by the court of criminal appeals.
All of it. So our
Okay.
recommendations are still in front of them. And I
Right.
think thought I saw Sion online.
Yeah,
I think we're-
yeah, I'm here and like I said, I don't think my court is going to mandate that these documents go into research. But some people are already doing it. And, I can envision an order or something saying outright that it's permissible, but I don't see us going to mandate it.
Don't you have, isn't there a law, what we're talking about is that there is a requirement that these documents be made available to the public? Is that what?
In our UCMS contract, we demand public access for documents.
Okay.
What are you doing for family, since family is not on Research Texas?
Well, it's following just research. You get it the same way, call the clerk kind of stuff.
Could I ask a follow-up question there at CNI? Does the court of criminal appeals care about how it's implemented?
Well, Research Texas it's a product and, attorneys have to pay for certain versions of it. So it's like mandating it go into Westlaw or Lexis. That is a factor, but there is also the main thrust has always been, there are so many more privacy concerns on the criminal side than there are on the civil side. And how that's implemented can affect that and the various discussions about whether it drops into Research Texas before it's even filed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there have to be some controls on it.
But if what they're mandated and what they're doing is, okay, there's no longer portal. Portal probably took care, I mean, they had to address all of these same concerns, right? For people to use portal. So why wouldn't those same restrictions, whatever, because what they're looking for is just a efficient, inexpensive way to do what portal did, right? I mean, you as the attorney would still get your documents, and the documents that are made available to the public that have been made available on portal would then be the same ones that would be available locally. So it wouldn't be necessarily reinventing the wheel. It's just they need to have a replacement for portal, and what is that going to look like or be? And, that's just that discussion, I guess.
So just to clarify, with these two different solutions, there is not a difference in terms of who can access it, what's available.
Correct.
et cetera.
It follows the appropriate rules. What most courts are asking is not for a mandate, just for allowance. Can we be permitted to put criminal records inside of research so that we can deprecate our older?
And I think before we can put them into research texts, we have to finish our technology standards. When we were meeting before COVID, that said, here are the case types that can go in, or the documents, and
Right.
and
and you
is
would
there a
still have-
delay, and
We
come
can-
up with whatever those.
Right.
And I
but
think we have,
did do that.
we have that in criminal already.
Yeah.
It's
we did,
there.
But it's there, but we need to meet, yeah, and we,
Because there's nothing to implement yet.
right. So my understanding is we would get with Tyler to say, okay, just like you operated Portal with these restrictions.
Yep.
Unless there's some other good reason to change them, for now, first steps would be implement the same restrictions you had with Portal over here. Just using Research Texas is just
It's another
it's an
vehicle.
existing operational system that you could use instead of the decaying Portal that you're phasing out. So I'm just wondering, then permissible and would be what they would be needing. So it's not I don't know that it's a mandate.
Well, and don't I correctly understand that some people are already putting in criminal records?
Not in research. They're doing it on their standalone clerk
Portals.
website.
Okay.
And so, like, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, so coming back to this issue of which one of these, and to your point, Justice Simmons, if the security is all the same and the access is all the same and it's permissive, you don't have to do it. I agree with you. Why would you choose the alternative solution? A local,
Right,
it doesn't make any sense to me either.
yeah, no, it's just, I mean, pretend it's called like Portal 3, but it's really just research. I mean, it's the back end is really the research to make it a more, I mean, because that's what's updated in what they have to offer,
But
so.
does someone want that? Does someone ask
No,
you that?
I think what Evan's trying to say is that we're coming to a fork in the road where we have to make a decision because we have to serve the UCMS customers. And right now, the road to research, which is option A, is blocked. They can't use that.
Because
So
it's
we
not
have-
permissible.
Because they're not allowed to put criminal records in there. So we have to give them a solution. So right now, we're saying our other solution is being end of life. So we'd either have to stand up a competing research site that you could put criminal in on a local level, or be able to allow criminal records inside of research.
Okay, so the CCA just needs to say that it's permissible.
Correct. Right, and and we just need to figure out what's the best way, Tim, to really kind of present this, because I think you're right, to identify that it's permissible, it's not a mandate, but this is just the back end solution for how to get criminal documents up for UCMS, right? I mean, that's kind of what it is.
But I mean, it's, and then even if you make it permissible, then my understanding is that you have non-UCMS customers that would love to jump ship of the thing that's about to be deprecated.
Yeah, no, that's right, and so it'd be for all customers, but I mean, it's just a way of providing the criminal documents that currently are provided.
So what is Tyler's timeline? Like, when do you all need the decision?
I mean, like I said, the underpinnings are already in there. It's a matter of when the decision's made. It's,
He's asking, when do we need it for UCMS?
Yeah.
oh, that's, so the portal deprecation has by 2025. I would need to get with the UCMS project team and double check on when's the drop dead date.
But sooner
When
rather
are you
than.
getting, so, yeah, and so, but Portal is not being updated, I mean, is it just basically,
Yeah.
and it's not being provided to others or anything else, right?
We're
It's
not
just-
implementing
You're
it
not
further.
implementing it with anybody else, even if they want it.
Right.
And the other thing Tracy raises a good point, and Bob, we can work on this in standards, is that I thought we had the do we show documents, do we not show documents enumerated for the criminal case types? I see the criminal case types in there, so we can do criminal e-filing. But I
Criminal
don't,
fines, but not research.
I don't see the research side of it, so the standards committee would need to meet and decide what goes in or how we do that.
So we need to go back and look at what our recommendation was
Yes.
to the Court of Criminal
We had came
Appeals.
up with it
Yeah,
before COVID, but we
right.
never implemented.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think,
And I think there were still some outstanding questions with case initiation.
Right.
Something with that, I think
we
it
can-
was
we can
either us
pull
or
it.
Sion or somebody was working on it, and I don't remember what, because
I thought we decided that.
Yeah, I
on-
think we
on
did
basically
too.
on
We
the
did too.
indictments, we did.
Okay,
it just never got implemented in the
and the
standard.
standards, because
No, because we didn't-
CCA hasn't said
hasn't
anything.
approved it, but it went to them. That we sent a proposal to them, and actually it probably needs to be dusted off and updated and everything else, depending,
Yes.
on what we
I would
want
like
to
to
do.
see it again.
So we need to
Yeah.
pull that and look at that again.
And if
Because
y'all
it-
can make sure that gets to me too, please.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, because remember, Tracy, we talked about that it would have to have the same delay on certain
Yeah,
documents.
we
Right.
talked about
Is-
this.
is
Now I
That would be
remember.
it.
So
No, and it was written. It was.
It's in the
It was-
recommendation.
it was in the
It hasn't been
recommendation of
implemented.
CCA.
Okay.
But you know what would behoove
I have to
me is
dust that
to
off.
look at what you all have for portal, just to kind of see what you're currently, what your matrix is as far as what documents are seeing, because that would be very illuminating and help us just make sure
Mhm.
we're kind of in the same ballpark. So can we get a
Mhm. Yeah.
copy of that
Yeah, we
and
can
pull
do that.
that? That'd be very helpful.
Building on to Blake's point, or in the point of, are we just replacing one vehicle with another? Then, I'm kind of thinking, the rules are already in place of what clerks can put out as far as criminal documents are concerned, like the rules that CCA has already promulgated says this is what you can put online and what you can't. Am I right, Sion? That-
Yeah, I believe so.
That said, like, you cannot place anything with sensitive data on the
Yeah.
capital I internet.
Right.
And so obviously clerks are putting criminal documents out
they
on the
for sure
local
are.
portal. And if they're in compliance with the rule, so is it already permissive? Because they're doing it, they're just using their old Chevy that they have.
Well,
So in
that's
other words- Go ahead.
that's kind of my question. I mean, what is prohibiting this right now?
Yeah, I'm very confused.
It's not configured.
So that's the question,
not-
is that reason that it's not permitted is because it's not configured,
Right. I don't think we gave Tyler the direction to say what they can show and what they can't.
right?
I think that's part of it because, we've never prohibited it except
Right.
for certain things like sensitive data and, certain sensitive cases.
Sure.
But I don't understand why it is being viewed as prohibited when, as far as I know, there's no rule out there prohibiting it.
Yeah, so that goes back to my first question, which is how much of this depends on the CCA? It sounds like none of it. Because Sion is saying it's not prohibited.
Right, well, the clerk already has a responsibility to not put sensitive information on the internet.
And is that
It
all
just
that
doesn't
they?
change.
Yeah, I mean, if they're happy with it only being that, then that's fine. I mean, what we developed for the Supreme Court was a very extensive matrix about what would and would not be put on uniform throughout the state. And so that, to me, was a very helpful thing, help clerks and everybody else understand what goes and what doesn't. So I assumed we had to do the same thing for the Court of Criminal Appeals, but
If I'm correct, and Richard, help me out. We publish our court records. We don't include CJIS information and we don't include sensitive information as it relates to the public. Is there anything else that we are not excluding, or did that cover everything?
No, but I think that's right.
And you're doing that through your on-prem Odyssey portal.
Okay. Yes, and victim,
right.
yeah, and victim information.
And so I think, Judge, it sounds like the approach may be to get with some of the existing, because like, I'm sure iDocket in your Ruby system that does documents, it's the same kind of thing on criminal. You don't,
I think the biggest issue is time, because if y'all come out with the criminal standards, it takes Tyler or a vendor 50 days to do those worksheets, times the number of offices.
right,
So it is it's because of the configuration time. It's not that someone forbids it, it's just the time it takes to update all the county's configurations. Whereas iDocket, we extract from the case management system, the case types and put them online. And we only put the defendant information in a date of birth. We don't put any other parties, we have the attorney. So it's one of those things just of the configuration time is the biggest blocker.
Well, but I mean, and then talking from just that general standpoint, then if you make it permissive, then we can, it sounds like the counties that are already putting criminal information out on the web that's in compliance with the existing rules, we just need to mirror that in our matrix,
Yeah,
standards matrix, and then move along.
and just move on and say, this is what we're doing.
And it's,
not
and
prohibited.
if it doesn't contain sensitive information, then it's already in compliant with the rules that CCA has already promulgated.
Okay.
Does that work?
But I do have a business item for track.
That,
It leads right into my.
so, yeah, so the other item.
You see what happened when I brought.
So the other item, and I think Tracy, you can elaborate on this.
Yes.
That there is an issue that Tracy brings up is conflicts between the law and rules.
The law and rules as far as our e-filing rules for sensitive data and government rules in section 552, 136 and 137. So it all happens on the criminal side, and we've gotten in this war in Harris County, evidently with attorneys and bondsmen, and per different rules in our county, we had put the defendant's email address and cell phone number on the bond. One attorney says, no, you can't show that, that's sensitive information, it says so in the rules and in these laws. And then we have a bondsman that's filing federal lawsuits against us saying they should be able to see it off of a criminal defendant. So we're in a catch-22, and we've looked at the laws and what they've reported to us. And I've sent that to Casey and Sion. But basically, we have our sensitive data saying the birth date, home address, personal phone number is in that sensitive data. But in the track rules, 910, it says, well, exclusion from redaction requirement is the defendant's, arrest warrant, search warrant, the defendant's date of birth, and the defendant's address. And then any government issued number like their social security number or driver's license number. We just would like to see that when it says defendant address, maybe say and defendant's email address. And then in the personal identifying numbers, add personal phone number, if that's what y'all come up with. Something that tells us what's excluded and what's not to sensitive data as far as a criminal.
So the bail bondsmen say they have a legal right to get it remotely,
Correct.
and it's not a question of, they just can't.
Well,
get it at all.
remotely on our kiosk, we have the same sort of rules programmed in. As far as, per the rule saying you cannot see it over an internet site. But, we have, some of our county judges have signed an order saying, yes, make those sensitive. But we also have certain rules that says it's not sensitive, so.
Can they come into your office and get that information or not?
If they are a party to the suit, they could, but as a bondsman, no. The way we have it programmed today. Because we're going off of the confidentiality in the government code 552, 136 and 137.
Okay, so statutory
Correct.
exception.
Yeah, and to be clear, if a statute says something is confidential, then it's confidential. That's
Yeah.
got a greater protection than sensitive data. But I understand what Tracy is saying. And I was going to look at that. We just started talking about this a couple of days ago. So there may be things like phone numbers or email addresses. Now, the defendant's social security number and driver's license number, they are protected because any government issued number except for those for the defendant, but we can certainly look at those and try to make it clearer.
So I'm hoping somebody can look at that.
Is that something that,
Is that we need to look at, or is that something?
That sounds to me like a CCA.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's where it goes first.
Yeah,
And it would depend on a lot of the things going on with Research Texas and once you shut it too.
Yeah.
So it's gonna depend a lot. If, once we move in that criminal world, how,
Right.
you know, what's sensitive and what's not is gonna become very important.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the sensitivity rules need to reflect the statute.
Right.
You can't, as someone mentioned, you can't override a statute by
statute trumps all?
So, yeah, we would look at that, and then, of course, we talk to Jackie and the Supreme Court and make sure everybody's on the same page.
Okay, so I think from this conversation, then it sounds like to me that we get our committee back up on the
Standards,
standards on criminal law, and just get from Tyler what they do for the portal and what their kind of concerns are regarding that, so that we can then say, are we go or no go, and give Tyler the recommendations regarding Research Texas and what you can upload to criminal and not.
yeah,
And with this other controversy in mind, we'll take the most conservative approach, that we don't put it up until we hear otherwise.
Well, we're gonna have to send, if we're gonna amend the standards to the extent they need to be amended, then it's gonna have to go to the Supreme Court, Court of Criminal Appeals
Yeah.
for adoption.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that's how come we kind of, put it
No,
up there, because we
I'm-
sent them for adoption, and
I know.
so we just need to look at it.
Can we,
Yeah.
let's circulate that
yeah, we'll
Two,
certainly.
two, 3-year-old
And
recommendation.
at the same time, though, if y'all are game, I'd like to involve Tyler.
Yes,
because
oh,
in the
absolutely.
event that we need to make the recommendations look differently because it's criminal, because like today, criminal, to e-file in criminal, it's just misdemeanor, felony 1, felony 2,
Yes.
and that's it. And there's no delineation
Of what the document is itself. the
or
case
below
type,
that,
below
or
that.
case type, anything below that.
Okay,
And so for research purposes, we may want to
I think you may
recategorize
want
things a
to,
little
yeah,
bit differently.
I think so too.
Well, we've got to include the delay.
Yeah.
Right, but I think, what we should do is what Bob said, we'll stand up a standards committee meeting
Yeah,
and involve Tyler to make sure that we've covered the bases that we need to cover with research, so that we can have a good make sure our recommendations are good.
okay. That sounds good. Okay, that's good. Okay, you can go ahead.
That was on the
Start.
last slide that you thought, right?
Yeah, I was like, just sit. No, and just one slide left. It's just a sort of a timeline of events of what's upcoming as far as the eVol Texas event roadmap. So we just put 2022.8.1.8 into production. Tracy, hopefully it's the MDL issue.
Yes, it did.
Yes. Okay, and then next up is the cycle 3 EFM install in our test realm, which is EFM 2024. And then beyond that is going to be starting to communicate the H5 site deprecation to our filing community, sort of prepare them for the move. Whenever we enable the redirect to the EFSP, make sure everything's all copacetic there, and then we do go ahead and deprecate the H5 environment. That clears the way for some of the new microservices are there. So the composable security model, the Okta integration, things like that. And then from there is going to be UAT on cycle 3, which is things like the fee effective date. So if I set a fee to be effective at a certain new amount on 1/1/2025, it's going to kick in on that. Tracy, envelopes that are filed before that will have the old fee. New envelopes after that will have the good fee. So removing
No
that
more,
headache.
no more New Year's Eve.
No more New
Until
Year's Eve.
midnight.
Tina, thank you for that one.
Yes.
And then beyond that, enabling Okta production, and then beyond that is some of the other, Okta utilities, so multi-factor authentication, requiring that authentication, federation, things like that, that we can actually expand upon.
So where are we going back to our orders and the automated solution to people who like to have their courts where it's a single document and others where there are exhibits or attachments and that whole kind of thing? Where are we on that?
So there's three sort of enhancement requests, sort of around the
Right.
documentation, so the, are you sure as far as, the document security, well, let me digress. Being able to set a default document security sort of site-wide saying, hey, we're defaulting everything to not secure unless you tell us otherwise. And then if you change that, you get an are you sure pop-up, does it meet? We could put verbiage in there. We expect those can be done, essentially after the cycle for development timeline, so by around July. We tentatively estimate the mechanism that does the lead documents attachment, how it associates the docking events to that around the same time frame, but we have a meeting with Tracy next week to get a little bit more information around how our CMS operates.
Yeah.
To see, is that timeline still gonna stick, or is that piece gonna be a little bit more complex, and it's gonna be a little bit further out? But tentatively, July. timeframe.
Right, okay, so both the security asking people, does that have confidential information, whatever, okay.
And that's it for me.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, next up,
Okay.
we've got Terry to show us some of the stuff that they're doing over in
Yeah.
Tarrant County with a newly acquired Tyler product. I believe there's also
Yeah, sure.
it's CSI's robots.
It's your new clerks that they'll be meeting, robots, June and Sunny and all your new friendly robots.
Since John can't hire anybody because he only
That's
pays
right. You can
$50.
hire June the robot or Sunny the
Those
robot
really great
or,
employees that don't require time off.
yeah, there you go.
Exactly.
I need some of these working for me.
So we've got, I'm excited to be here today to show you, I think I actually, have the date wrong, I think it's actually the 10th, but I'm looking ahead because I'm always, looking forward. I'm excited to show you this is something that's really exciting for me. But as we get into it, I'm also very mindful of the time, so, I've got about a 5 to 6 minute video that can walk us through this, but I kind of want to level set beforehand, and then also afterwards, just kind of tie a bow around it, if that's all right. So what I'll be showing today is how we can automate the electronic filing workflow using automation, and our automation tools can work 365 days a week, 365 days a year, 7 days a week, and 24 hours a day to help reduce the manual work effort that's required by the clerks. It also can help increase the throughput and velocity by minimizing the number of data entry errors that we sometimes see that can be from filings coming in incorrectly from the legal professionals and just not caught from, I should say, from the legal professionals, could be SRLs too, and quite frankly, is often them, but not called by the clerks and then put into the CMS. And then it can also achieve the same day processing, which is one of the directives recently by the Supreme Court. So the way it works is we include 4 different robots in the e-filing process, and then there's an optional 5th robot that can help with some subsequent activities and actions within the case management system. But the first robot basically monitors the review queue inside of eFile Texas, and it goes in and identifies a record that has been submitted that has not yet been picked up by the clerks and locks it down so that a clerk doesn't get in and start working it while the robots are doing their thing. The second one actually gathers the information of the filing and extracts that out. It also then downloads the documents, and then it provides the classification, separation, and extraction of the content within the document. And it provides both the contents of the document and the contents of the filing to the third robot so it can analyze it. So the third robot then compares the 2 data and makes sure that it's accurate, make sure that everything is matched up so that it knows which actions to take on the filing itself. And then the 4th actually performs the work. And we'll actually see a live demonstration of robots performing this. It's a video, I should say, but it's robots performing these steps. And you'll see it. It'll look just like a clerk is actually doing the work, but it's actually the robots performing all the steps. So the 4th will actually take the initiative to either accept or return it back for correction. And then once it goes through, the fifth robot can go in and it's CMS agnostic. It can work with any case management system, but it'll go through and actually perform subsequent activities that the clerks typically do after they accept the filing from eFile Texas. Okay, just real quick, I think there's two key implementations that we've implemented the software in that I'd like to kind of just showcase. Palm Beach County is really kind of a showcase customer of ours. They, in implementing this, had done a significant automation effort. It included about $2.5 million in savings, about 1.9 million annual savings net. So huge savings for them. They're processing their filings about 5 times faster than what they were doing with just clerks alone. And they've achieved now same day processing, and 42% of their filings that come through don't require any clerk involvement at all. But even more kind of important, or something that I'm not showing on the slide here, is that the 58% that aren't hands-off are actually doing work to set it up so that the clerk involvement is minimal. So really a key highlight, I think, for us in terms of implementations. The other one's a little bit closer to home, and that's Tarrant County. So the Tarrant County clerk recently implemented this. It actually started back in 2018 when they first started going through that process. But I'll share a little bit more about that in just a second. But the couple of the key things that they've mentioned to us is that it proactively identifies the errors on the front side while it's extracting that e-filing data in that process. And that's important because then the clerks aren't wasting their time for those that do require clerk effort. It's automatically returning them back for correction and saving that time that the clerk would look at it, identify an error and say, hey, I need you to fix this. The second thing it did is they were up to about 48 hours of processing time, and now it's down to minutes. So a lot of the work is just now accelerated by implementing this. And then the last thing that they mentioned was a key value add out of this was the improved quality of getting it into the source system, or the system of record, which is the case management system. So the data coming in to the case management system is of higher quality because it's able to then capture some of those errors before it actually hits there.
Yeah, question.
Sure.
Are they able to manually override a rejection if it's wrong, or are they also programming it to return for correction for things that are not defined by the rules?
It depends upon how they're configured. We can configure the workflow to do a lot of different things. I'll actually show some of that in the demo here in just a second. Good question. I will say, and I think Shay may be on the phone, maybe she can help me out here, but they actually went through the process of starting this back in 2018. Then it got really accelerated whenever the pandemic hit to try to start operating more efficiently as an office. Because of how they implemented it, they received the NACO National Achievement Award, which I thought was pretty cool. And we'll actually be using their environment in the demo to show you how it actually works. But I asked, what was the key components to your success? And they just said, really just fully committed partners. The IT staff needs to help out and understand kind of the components there, the clerks, and of course the vendor. And then, so I said, well, what was the results? And the results is that they said that they're bots, and they named them Skynet, R2D2, and Optimus Prime, which I thought was fairly.
IT people involved in that.
That's right.
Richard would agree that this sounds like IT department name.
So they turned them off on the weekends so that all the other stakeholders, the attorneys, the judges, and the clerk staff could keep up. So I thought it was just an interesting data point. They can run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but you do have the option to configure those.
So Terry, when you talk about because of the humans, we're needing to catch up, this is upstream of the process, so that what was happening then is on the weekends, the bots would create the flood, then Monday morning when people came in, now their to-do list is 3 miles long because the bots were working all weekend.
That's right. And we'll show some stats in just a minute on how well they're performing, but what you'll actually see out of this is that they've only configured it to work for certain case types and certain filings, not globally. And so you'll see what they're working at, but you'll also see the performance that we've pulled from our eFile analytics platform for their office in terms of throughput by resource. So you'll be able to see that comparison. So
wouldn't you have to have it off on weekends just for the sheer way we do our file stamps? Because if they are filing it on the weekend, technically the file stamp date is Monday morning, right? And if you're accepting it before it's filed, basically.
It actually goes to a validation queue. So it still stays in line, but what it is that when the bot runs through it, and if it finds a code that it thinks that it can work, it throws it into a validation. So we don't have anything 100% lights out right now because we like to keep our hands on the filing and just make sure until we're 1,000% ready for it to go lights out, that we have a clerk that goes in there. So say Monday morning, and all those envelopes are in our validation queue. So the clerk still looks at it. And if it's something that they don't want the bot to work, they kick it out to a manual queue, which it just sends it right back to the clerks. Now, if it's something that the bot can accept, it's really fast because all of what it does is it's extracting all the data on there. So we don't have to do anything. We just verify that it's correct. We look over the pages, make sure everything complies that we need, and then we accept it from there. And it just makes that process a lot faster.
So, but to answer your question, what she's saying is that even though they're working on the weekends, they haven't, they're not hitting the accept button. It's just kicking it over to the queue saying, I think I've done everything that I can do. I just need a human to just look it over really quick. And so that is,
Okay.
so it's just cutting out of that manual clerk process.
Yeah, that final acceptance is still, we still do that because we don't want to go lights out on the clerks yet.
Right.
So time on task wise, it takes how long to actually go get a doc or go to open the e-file, look at a document, review the document and accept it. As it is normally versus the time it takes, time on task with just doing the validation for the work that the body's doing.
You got it. So the average across eFile Texas today is 2 minutes and 9 seconds per envelope, or 2.15 minutes. And for the bots, it's relatively close to that. I will actually show you, it's a 5-minute video.
So that's the human side, but once the bot has done the work and the human comes back to validate what the bot is doing, how much of that time is the human spending on doing the validation versus doing the entire process?
I can definitely speak to that. So when you open that envelope, if there's an error, it highlights it right away. So say if you're missing your attorney signature or whatever, it says attorney signature missing. You can go there in 2 seconds, make sure that it is really missing, or you can, if the signature is there, you show the bot where it's at, which is that it's a learning process. Yeah, so it's learning all the time. But really it cuts down it highlights all the errors, essentially. If it's missing a physical address, if it's missing the city on the document, if it's missing anything that, that we're going to input in there, it highlights it right away. So it just directs your eyes directly to the problem. So it does save us a lot of time on the documents that we do use.
The national average knowledge is 5 to 7 seconds.
Per document. So what's initial engagement to implementation time?
Implementation time, I think it depends upon what the scope of the effort is, because there's different ways that you can implement that. Let's take a look at it real quick. This will be a 5-step process that'll walk you through it. There's some narrative here, and then I'll try to kind of narrate as we go along, if that's all right. Hopefully you guys can.
The automation demonstration will leverages
All right. So this is actually Sorry, this is actually a robot that's doing the, what it's doing is it's going in, identifying the envelope, and locking it down to another card. Might go in.
Okay,
Is that better?
now you can go.
Okay, so what it's doing is it's going in, it's using a set of credentials that has been set up for it with the right privileges to the right jurisdiction to the right queues. It's searching for the available envelopes that haven't yet been worked by the clerks, and it's opening them up to lock it down so another clerk doesn't pick it up while it's doing its process. So the second robot's going to go into the exact same envelope and then begin downloading all of the data that's been e-filed. So it's going through and capturing all of the data. And then the second thing that it's going to do is it's going to go in and download the document. And so when you see it download the document, you'll notice that down here, it's actually putting in the right address of where it should save it off to local drive so that it can go in and then compare those two items, that what's inside of the document and what's inside of the e-filing data, and send it to the third robot for. All the AI right now is being applied in this step. It's behind the scenes, so you can't see it. What it's actually doing is it's going in right now and just making sure, this is an optional step, but it's making sure that the case can be filed into. In some jurisdictions, they'll lock cases down when they're in a different state so that no filings can come in. That's the additional validation. But the more important part that the third robot's doing is it's actually doing all of the automation behind the scenes. It's actually making those decisions to tell the fourth robot what to do. So here, it's going to go into that envelope and it's going to go through each of those filings. You'll notice that over here on the left-hand side, it'll go ahead and pull up that motion to dismiss. It's going to add a filing description here with prejudice and the envelope number and the document number, as well as the filing comments. You'll also see it moves the stamp to some white space, so it's not overlaying on the text on the document. It'll do a very similar task. It'll go into the second one once it saves this one off, which is the proposed order. And in the proposed order, it's going to go do the same thing, granting dismissal with prejudice. It's going to go remove the stamp because it's a proposed order, and the workflow that Tarrant uses is to send that to the judge for review. So now it's going to go through the process of saving both of those off, and then it's going to go through and it's going to accept those filings, which is what it's doing right now.
You're saying the robot is saying it's granted?
No, it's putting that it's putting that information in preparation for the judge to review. That's part of their workflow. Yep. So it's done accepting the filings now. So that was the end of the e-filing piece. Now it can go into the CMS and perform subsequent activities. So a lot of times when the clerks receive that filing, then they come in and do different things to help make sure it's cleaned up. So like in this instance, they're taking that motion to dismiss and they're gonna go relate it to a party, which in this instance is the Capital One Bank. So you'll see it's adding that plaintiff on so that the judge knows who filed it. It's gonna do the same thing. It's gonna look now in the event screen or the filing screen for that proposed order. And then it's gonna go into that proposed order and do the exact same thing. It's gonna relate it to that party, which in this instance is that Capital One Bank. That way, when the judge looks at it, the judge knows who is actually filed that. Next thing it's gonna do is it's gonna navigate over to the Documents tab. And when it goes over to the Documents tab, it's gonna find that document that was submitted. It's gonna open it up, and then it's gonna go ahead and enter in some text so that you have that information. It's also gonna go into the other one, which was the proposed order. And when it opens up the proposed order here, you'll notice that it's gonna go through and try to attach the proposed order with the motion to dismiss so that you have both of them related, because most judges want to see those documents together. And then the last thing it's gonna do is it's gonna go through and it's gonna send it to a workflow, which will take another set of steps that the clerk will need, time standards, ticklers, things of that nature. So that's the demonstration. That's what the robot is capable, the robots, I should say, plural, is capable of doing. What I'd like to do is just kind of show you the performance, because it's easy to see it on the screen, but what is that context in terms of the,
Go ahead.
thanks, Casey, in terms of the broader county, for example.
Now you're gonna turn your screen.
Better?
Yes.
All right, we're getting better at this, Casey.
I know.
If you look at the performance at the county court at law nodes or courts for Tarrant County, what you'll see is that since the beginning of the year till November 7th, this is the top producing resource out of the office. They have 20 resources working on filings. This one produces the most, just at about 18%, about 9,000 envelopes it's worked. 97.5% were processed in the same day. The ones that weren't generally are then pivoted over to the clerks for subsequent actions, review, validation, things of that nature. And only 7 of these were returned back for review and correction. At the probate node, it's a very similar result. The probate bot was the 3rd most producing resource out of that office, out of, again, 20 resources, about 7,000 envelopes, about 18.5%. And very comparable with only about 3 filings returned for correction. So just kind of the broader, if you take another step back, what you look at is the left over here, you'll probably see very familiar. This is the same workflow that we've been talking about for the last decade with regards to e-filing, but from the clerk's perspective, where they monitor the queues, they review those envelopes, and then they make a decision on whether to accept or return it for correction. It takes about 2 minutes and 9 seconds, or about 2.15 minutes per envelope. And across the 9.4 million envelopes, you're talking about 161 man hours, or man years, I should say, that's spent every single year reviewing filings inside of eFile Texas. So just kind of putting it in perspective.
Remind me how many documents are in an envelope.
Yeah, it varies. I think it's generally,
It's just
yeah,
based on the submitter.
it is, yeah, and it depends upon the number of filings too, right? Because every filing, every envelope could have 1 or more filings. I think we typically see anywhere from about 1 to 2 filings per envelope, and I think we see a very comparable set of documents as well.
Terry, have you all thought about implementing one of these robots as a way to check your documents before you submit them?
Yeah, so yes, there's a lot of opportunities out there. One of these is really kind of like what you said, before you submit them. Another one is really around accelerating the data entry work for the legal professional or the filing community member. So if we can scan the document, pull out that information, then we can automate the filing. It's called autofill filing, right? We would automate that process to where the filers don't need to do anything. Something that we've been talking about for a while now, and now that we've pulled CSI into the Tyler family, it's something we're definitely exploring. The other thing I think is interesting about this is because we can do some of the automation now, and I think it also is it may not be the avenue, but it is one of the avenues that we can consider with regards to standardizing the filing, because we're talking about it from the lead document versus the attachment. But as you can see, you can relate documents fairly easy utilizing the robot. So it's another consideration for that.
I think it'd be great if there was a way to like check my document against the rules of civil procedure and tell you, everything that's wrong with it before you.
Help me to choose what filing
Just
category.
leave that baby in.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT.
In your previous presentation, we talked about the volume of documents returned for correction. In this instance, you have almost 9,000 documents, only 3 returned for correction. So actually automating that process cleans up the issues of return for corrections, what would drive that high volume of almost 70% threshold down to almost 1%.
Yeah, you got it, John. I mean, because the bot is doing the work, it's learning as it goes, right? And so it's becoming smarter and smarter, but it's correcting those errors along the way. So even though it's, submitted, what we've previously said is it's important for the filing community member to understand how to properly submit it so that the clerks aren't constantly making those changes. But if you have a robot doing it, it's a whole lot easier, right? And so those submissions can come in, they can be modified to be correct, and then submitted and accepted the right way.
Yeah, but I think attorneys would love it if they would know that if I submit something.
It's gonna go through. Yeah.
That's the big issue, really,
Yeah.
would make all those complaints.
So one last question, sure. So sometimes I have issue with Mary and Jane not working and having a conversation. What do you do when R2D2 and Optimus Prime or chatting instead of working?
Yeah. We program them to be very efficient.
Bad robot.
But our DA is researching a lot of the AI technology and drafting a lot of affidavits and prototyping how, the case summary charging document is going to look like and that sort of stuff, and helping draft a lot of that. So everybody just the human has to just preview and make sure everything's right before it getting submitted, speeding up that process a lot.
Yeah, I think, as I think about like the clerk's role, some of the clerk's role is very redundant, very, familiar over and over. And that's where the robots, the RPA, the robotic processing automation really accelerates, is it can actually take over that part of the work. And then there's another subsection of that work for the clerks that really requires them to think and make decisions on and judgments on. And it can eliminate the redundant work that's really kind of just go over and over, and then free up that additional capacity so that they can spend time on those decisions, making better decisions for the court.
I think, go ahead.
Assuming this is scalable, how many Paul Bunyans are out of a job?
Paul Bunyans?
Yeah, the clerk competitors to manually process it.
Not, well, I would say in most cases, it's running into what John, if you implement it in John's shop, John's not gonna be able to let anybody go because he's already got open. It just means that I don't need to fill the 15 openings.
Richard and I also.
Just making it more efficient
Right.
and less,
It would
wait
open up,
time for
it would
you.
open up a lot more options for clerks to do other tasks perhaps.
Yeah, but also.
You're gonna lose the job.
Yeah, make a mistake.
Well, but that would be through attrition, but also one of the things that you do.
I think your commissioners are gonna look and go, golly, I like Skybot or whatever. I think I'll get some more of those and, no PR, no HR problems, HR, we can reduce that.
Right.
And let me.
No, I think that's right.
This is worldwide.
You just
It is.
Yeah.
three positions and you decide not to fill them.
But also, it's not a matter of employees losing their jobs, if their job description changes, because while you have the bots do that task, then the clerks are actually doing stuff like monitoring the performance of the bots, like you said, they're checking the work that the bots have done and even managing, they become supervisors of the bot.
Until they take.
Until the machines are.
Robot supervisors.
So the bike.
Can I interrupt and ask a question? This is so wonderful. What is the barrier to moving this pre-filing where an attorney directly can run the same kind of review and have this done before they even filed it?
Yeah, that was a question that was, I think, brought up just a little while ago. And the answer to that was, I think we were playing with the audio here, so it may not have come through, but that there is that, we are exploring that, right? It's a part of that, I think, is what we call autofill filing, where the robots go in and then, you know, classify, separate, and extract the text out from that filing, and then it can go in and then automatically then fill out the appropriate steps that are required in order to submit it. You know, you can calculate from that perspective as well, right? And that's an opportunity that we're definitely exploring and evaluating.
Carrie, I've got a question, a very quick question. Is there a checkpoint where the clerk can see where the robot made the change and what it changed it from and to?
Yeah, and part of that is in that validation queue or verification queue that Shay mentioned earlier. There is an opportunity in the process to do that.
Excellent.
Any other questions?
Yeah, how much does it cost?
Again,
We already asked that question. They weren't ready to answer that.
Depends on the scope. I mean, what we showed here today in the first 4 steps was the process self-contained within eFile Texas. And obviously, we showed the 5th bot, which was within the case management system. Again, that's an agnostic way of doing it because it's the browser UI level. We don't need any kind of interaction in terms of getting in on the code level. And then again, there's also then the other component that we talked about with David, I think with on the front end of doing that. So kind of wherever we land, I think there's some variances there.
Are y'all exploring any kind of summary type functionality, like a GPT function for judges, like that would give them the summary data of what's been filed and what's being sought?
We have some options that are available for judges that are deeper rooted and more of the analytics offerings and things like that we can talk about for sure.
You have everything, basically.
We're working towards it.
So out of everything that the AI accepts or gets to the validation queue, percentage wise, out of that validation queue, how much does the clerk then have to manually fix because it got it wrong, kind of deal?
Shay, would you like to answer that one?
Yes. So when it goes through the validation and you're teaching the bot where to look, when it comes into our case management system, we just double check to make sure there was no error in our network or anything like that and it coming over. But we have it's been a long time since we've run into anything that has come over to Odyssey incorrectly once it's validated.
Thanks, Shay. And then I don't know if I introduced Henry. Henry Sowell is the creator of the technology. So he's here with us. He's joined Tyler and he's the leader at Tyler that oversees our automation work here. Henry, do you have any examples in terms of others that you could provide?
Yeah, I think your question was related to how many items have to be printed in the verification queue after AI. Between 10 and 15% of the total volume across the universe of documents to be processed. Document classification, which is the first part of AI, is we're using large language models now, and that's about 99.8% accurate classification. And that's in production data that long results verify.
Cool. Thank you, Henry.
So in essence, based on what Henry's saying, as it relates to my total e-filing, with the inclusions of the bots doing the other work, the only thing I am doing is probably about maybe 20 documents a day.
Depends upon the volume, but
yeah, I mean, just
sure.
Yeah.
You mean fix about 20?
Yes, because there's nothing to do with the others. My focus now becomes 20 documents.
You turn into an exception processing outfit.
Yeah.
And your speed is now 5 to 7 seconds per document.
Yeah.
And our most successful document types for CCL, it's proposed orders, and for probate, it's attorney certificate. I even have that. But there are documents that pretty much 100% we don't even have to touch. And it doesn't do everything, but that's our preference. But proposed orders, and I mean, it sends it to our judges queue. We set up to where if our clerk was going to do something, now the bot does it. So you pick the documents that you would like to run through automation. And we went with the highest volume of documents that we didn't want associated with the party, and that we wanted it to just shove it to a queue for the court. And that took out a lot of our time.
So how long did it take to configure and train your bots?
So
Or configure your system and then train your bots to your system? And,
So
I mean, so that they get their learning.
well, and a lot of this was, you know, when we first started, we were teaching CSI and, you know, how we wanted our documents filed and what does a affidavit of service really mean? And why do we want affidavits and not affidavits of service? That kind of thing. So that took, I would say, it took a lot more time to show all the documents that we potentially could have. But once we put those into the system, like Henry said, there's a classification project that's constantly working to define these different documents. So if you see a motion for something maybe every 6 months, so the bot hasn't seen it, well, then you put it in the classification, and we would have a lot of back and forth on how we would want that to be evented into Odyssey. So that was our preference. We have quite a few event codes in Odyssey. So we went through and said, this document's this 4-letter event code. This one is this one. So that took us, we started doing that in in January of 2020. And we went live with CCL in February of 2022.
So, can I ask that question another way?
Yeah.
They were our first client that were doing end-to-end automation of Silencer and also Odyssey, so as initial system development. Our last Tyler implementation from contract signing to production was 90 days.
Okay, that's.
So 3 months, but you can see that based on what Tarrant County is doing, this is not a statewide pay money and poof, it's there for everybody. It looks like so far it's gonna be a county by county preference thing on how it works.
I think part of that is because, you know, we're talking about the acceptance of that information, and if you remember, we've got the filing basing codes that are uniform, but then the local courts codes that are different, and so that combination right there means that we'll have to do a little bit of work around that.
There's very little custom training nowadays because the robots have skills. Right. And there may be 50 skills for Odyssey and skills for a Silencer. And then the clerk typically does the standard things like have a party and event, things like that. So it's a configuration file, which is a spreadsheet, which says, here's the file code you want to automate, and here's the skills you want the robot to do.
Are the robots local or are they on the cloud?
They come in your office.
Is the program still on premise or is it in the cloud?
We're running your Odyssey.
Yeah.
I'm not on Odyssey.
Yeah.
Say if it was different, we would.
Case management.
We're running your.
Yeah. So
Okay.
for you, Tracy, it would be on.
If I was an Odyssey, if I'm in an Odyssey Dallas situation where I'm on-prem, the program would run on-prem.
Right.
But if I was an Odyssey SaaS customer, you're just spinning up an AWS instance to let it run there. Okay.
So Henry said that literally talking about a 90-day process. But is it really a 90-day process? Because I'm assuming it would be kind of a rinse and repeat since this is all e-file. So everything that Tarrant County has done, those bots for my office will be literally, they'll already come in with that degree of training. And so the only thing we have to do is identify specific document types, or if it's the same as Tarrant County, would that 90 days go to 45?
Our average is 90, because typically what you're gonna find out is you're not doing things exactly the same way Tarrant County.
So it's based on the business process.
Right. Yeah, and that goes back into, you know, talking about how are we going to use them, because there's different ways to, you know, to be able to configure them. And use
But
them.
boy, what a great way to standardize the e-filing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Point out the big problem we have there.
Yes. And the rejections, return for corrections.
So maybe OCA should contract to do it statewide.
I think, yes.
Standardize it all.
Yes.
Blake, is that a motion?
I don't think so, John. I don't think so.
Well, you can opt out. But if you have the bots wouldn't want to. Remember the difference between.
Well, and then if you extend it to the filer side,
You can do one without the other. Yeah.
to run their check their documents before,
Get the same check on the front end. That would be.
that would be, That would solve an awful lot for everybody.
So it'd be great to be part of the e-filing system up front.
Okay, curious. Any other questions on this? I know we're over time.
So interesting.
Can we have a bot? Attorneys?
We can talk afterwards.
You can be the guinea clerk's office. Can you contact Bear County and see if they might get a few bots down there to?
My understanding in talking with, I met Henry at CTC earlier this year and then talking with Terry. But basically, if you have anything that's on your computer screen that you can see with your eyeballs and click on and type into, these bots they can see and type and click into as well, so.
Just educating.
So is this a, like, buy one, get one free? or-
Yeah. Buy 4 bots, get the 5th one free.
I agree. You found one that can do all of those steps, right?
Well, I think Maryland state has. Their entire state using the technology. Yeah.
Wow. There you go.
And I bet you they don't have a county.
Is there, if we talk to,
Yeah.
great, is that functionality with practice management systems and document intelligence?
You know, we haven't gone that far, but that's definitely an opportunity that we can explore. I think right now our focus is mainly on optimizing the courts processes and making those efficient. I mean, that's kind of where we live, that's kind of where we play, but yeah, there's always an opportunity to extend out to more of the adjacent partners like the matter management system vendors. All right, thank you guys very much.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you. Great. Okay, do we have anything else?
That was our agenda for today.
Okay, any more comments? Then thank you very much for coming. We got a lot of work to do and yes.
Make one comment, I'm gonna
Yes.
speak on behalf of Tracy and John.
Okay.
They don't know about this. But Blake, there's no reason to exempt commercial process servers, law enforcement from the e-filing mandate. I don't know if that was a conscious decision or you didn't think about us, but process servers are in their offices every day filing stuff and they should get with the e-filing program.
I'm with you.
Okay, reaching to the choir. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The fewer, we have to do John and thank you bubble.
That's fine.
But
Huh?
for those.
So what do you,
And automated.
I thought they, oh, I know, the secretary, it's the secretary attorney general.
They should be mandated.
And e-file, right? Who gets to do that?
No, I mean,
Never
they
did.
issue, I think the way that e-filing rules are written, it says attorneys are required. But they're saying, well, process server's not an attorney,
Right.
so I can, but I don't have to because I'm not an attorney.
Okay.
But we shouldn't have to,
Right,
I agree.
because we don't have to pay any fee for those.
right. Because my assumption is when we did that rule, it was to relieve the pressure from pro se's.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like John and Jane Public
It
coming
was,
in.
that's what it's for.
But then-
Absolutely, never thought about it.
Do you want to put that on the next agenda?
Yeah, no, I've got that,
It should be
Yeah.
any commercial, yeah,
yeah.
any
exactly.
commercial enterprise should be required.
Which includes law,
Mhm.
because they get paid to do it too.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Next meeting?
Next meeting is February the 9th, and I'll be sure to send out a reminder for that.